Hello my friends! Today I'm gonna show you social media authentication using React and Passport.js. We will have this homepage and we are not allowed to reach any post here unless we are logged in. So it's gonna redirect me to the login page and I can log in using these social media buttons. You will see how easy to do that using Passport.js. And moreover, we will be using sessions, so even if I refresh the page, we will be still logged in. And you can add other applications like Twitter, Spotify, Steam, so on. Okay, if you want to see more tutorials like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you are ready, let's get started. Okay, we have a client folder here and inside I created my React application. As you can see, we have only app.js here and inside we have this text. Let's see. Okay, that's all. So we are gonna start with design part. Of course, you can directly skip to Passport.js part, but I recommend you to watch here that because it can be a little bit confusing if you don't know which components we are using and where they come from. So let's start. Firstly, we are gonna have a navbar here. It's going to include our logo and user information or a login button. And after that, we are going to have a home page. It's going to include 3 cards here. And when I click those cards, we are going to go to post page. Let's do that quickly. I will come here and create 2 folders. First one will be pages. And second one will be components. Navbar is gonna be a component, so I'm gonna create this here. I will say navbar.jsx. Okay, let's create our function. And I'm gonna write here navbar. And I'm gonna call this here. Let's say navbar. Okay, as you can see, it comes from components. If I save, it's gonna be here. Awesome. So how we are going to handle styles? I will come here and create just one style file, app.css. I'm not going to separate them. We can use this only here. So I will say import app.css. Okay, let's come here and let's give class name for this. It's going to be navbar. Let's create our logo. It's gonna be span and I'm gonna say Lama app, like that. Let's give class name, logo, and after that I'm gonna create UL list here and class name will be list. And inside this list we are gonna have 3 items. First one will be, let's say, li and list item. And it's going to include user avatar. So I will say image and class name, like that. And second one will be username, list item, and let's say John Doe. We are going to change it. And list item, logout button, like that. Let's open up app.css and give some style for them. Let's open up here so we can see better. Okay, for the main container, navbar, I will say hide 50 pixels and background color will be this color, which is kind of purple, and text color will be white. Let's see. Okay, something like that. So let's make them horizontal. Display flags and align item center. I'm gonna give some space from left and right, but firstly let's take care of this list. I wanna make it horizontal also. So I will say list display flags, align item center, and I'm gonna delete those dots, so I will say list style none. Okay, perfect. As you can see, we don't have any image yet, but let's give some space between them. So if I come here and say justify content and space around, they are gonna be like that. Let's give some space between those items. List item and margin right 20 pixels. And I can increase font weight 500. Okay, nice. And cursor pointer. So we can click them. We can give this click effect. So okay, let's give image for avatar. For the source, I'm gonna paste my image here like that. It's not important that because we are gonna take this image and this name from our social media accounts. But for now, we are gonna use this. As you can see, it's really big. So I will say avatar width 32, height 32, and I wanna make this circle like that. And let's say object width and cover. Okay, awesome. Let's increase this logo. Before this list, I can write it here. So I will say logo, font size 20, and font weight will be bold. Okay, it's much better. And that's all. Let's create our homepage. I can close here, and let's close here also. And I'm gonna come here and create my page. It's gonna be home.jsx. And let's say home here. And I'm gonna use after navbar. Of course, we should import like that. So let's come here and give a class name. It's gonna be just home. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create 3 cards here, and each one is gonna include title, image, and some description. So to make this easier, let's create a data, dummy data, so we can use them quickly. So I will say data.js, and inside I'm gonna paste my items. As you can see, we have 3 posts. Each one has title, image, description, and long description. We are gonna use it for homepage and use it for post page. So let's use them. I will say posts. Okay, it's not coming. We should import this manually. So I will say import posts from data. Okay, right now I can map through this data. We are gonna use each of them. So I will say map, and for each post. So let's create here our card component. I will say card.js or JSX. I will quickly initialize my card component, and I will say card, and let's call it here. Let's see. As you can see, we have 3 cards here. So basically, I can pass my data as a prop. So I will say post equals post. So right now I'm able to take this post here as a prop and use it here. Let's say, for example, post and title. As you can see, post and description. They all are here. Awesome. But there's an important thing. If you are using map, don't forget writing here a unique key, and it's going to be our post and ID. Remember, we have unique IDs here. We can use them. Okay. By the way, don't forget this class name. We are going to use it later, but let's create our card first. I will delete here, and I'm going to create a span, and it's going to be title. Title or card title, whatever you say. And let's write here post.title, and after that we are gonna have image, and class name will be image, and source will be post.image, and we have description, so we can use p tag here, and I will say description. And I'm gonna write here post.description. And finally, I'm gonna create a button. I will say cart button. And let's say read more. Okay, let's save and see. Okay, we have title, image, description, and button here. Okay, awesome. Let's give some style. I'm gonna open app.css again here. And firstly, let's give a size for this cart component. I'm gonna close here. Okay, we didn't give any class name here. Let's give. It's gonna be cart. So I will say width 30%. And if I come here and for image, I will say width 100%. So basically our cart will be 30% of the parent and image will be 100% of its parent, which is cart. Let's see, I will save here. Okay, something like that. And remember, this is our home page, and remember our home class name. I will come here and say home, display flags to make them horizontal like that. I will give some padding from top and bottom and from left and right like that. Okay, they are too close each other. Let's separate them. I will say justify content and space between. Okay, awesome. And for the responsive design, I will come here and say display flex wrap, and it's gonna be wrap. So for those cards, I can give padding also like that, but we cannot see our container. To see that, you can give border color here, or you can give box shadow. So if you search for any box shadow generator, you can arrange your box shadow here like that. Spread, blur. It's totally depends on you. And after that, you can just copy here and paste for your style file. I've already done that, so I'm gonna paste it here like that. Let's see. And it's gonna be like that. As you can see, we have box shadow. And I'm gonna give border radius here. Border radius is gonna be 20 pixels. Okay, awesome. For this image, they are gonna be same size, so I can come here and say height 200, for example, and object width will be cover. Like that. Let's give some margin from here and here, from top and bottom. So I will say margin 20 and 0. Okay, perfect. What about this description? Let's write here quickly description. Text color will be this dark color. I will give margin bottom, and line height is gonna be 25 pixels. Let's take care of this button. Cards button. I will delete border. Border radius 10 pixels. Background color will be again this purple color, but darker one like that. Let's give padding. Okay, let's make this font color white. And font weight will be bold. Let's say cursor pointer also. And that's all. Awesome. So when I click one of them, we are gonna go to post page. Of course, we are gonna do this by using React Router DOM, but for now, for just the design, I will come here and change it with post. But we don't have yet. Let's create pages. I will say post.js. Post. And I will come here and change this home page. It's gonna be post. Okay, so let's change this. It's gonna be container. Let's say post. It's gonna include image. Post image. We are gonna have title. Post title. P for post description. And remember, we have one more description, and it's going to be post long description. Of course, we are going to fetch data using our data.js here, but we cannot do that right now because we are not using React Router DOM right now. But basically, when we go to post and let's say 1 or 2 or 3, we are going to see those items according to this item ID. Let's take just one of them. We are going to change it later. So I will say post equals, I'm going to import these posts from data. So I'm going to get just one of them. Let's say 2. And I'm going to use them here. For image, it's going to be post.image. For h1, post.title, description, and long description. Okay, like that. Let's give style quickly. App CSS. I will come here and I will say post. For the container, I will center them first. So I will say display flags, flags direction column. In this case, they are going to be vertical. And if I say align item center, they are going to be centered like that. What about this image? I will say width 100%, height, let's say 300 pixels, like that. Let's give object width. Okay, and I'm gonna give a space here. Margin bottom 20 pixels. Okay, what about description? Post description. I will give padding from left and right, like that. Font size will be 24, font weight will be thinner, and color will be gray. Like that. Let's give margin here. Margin top 50. Awesome. So for long description, I will do the similar thing. Post long description, padding 100. But if I do that, this space will be really big. So I will say padding top just 50. And let's say font size 18. And line height will be 24 pixels. Like that. So we have only login page. Let's create that also. I will close everything here. I will come here and for pages, I'm gonna say login.js. I will say login, and for the app page, I will delete this and I'm gonna say login. Okay. We are gonna use some icons, social media icons. So I will say image folder. I'm gonna move my images. As you can see, we have 3 icons. We are gonna use them soon. So firstly, I'm gonna add here a title. So h1 tag, login title. Choose your login method, and after that, let's create a wrapper. It's gonna be a box which includes our inputs and buttons. But firstly, I'm gonna split this box into 2 pieces, left side and right side. Left side will include social media icons and right side will include normal inputs. So let's say left and right, and inside left, let's create our buttons. So I will say login button. Firstly, we are going to import our images here. Let's say import Google from image and Google PNG. I will do the same thing for others. Facebook and Github. Let's make them lowercase. Okay, we can use them right now. I will say image and icon class name, and source will be Google. And it's going to include a text, which is Google. And I'm going to duplicate this div like that. It's going to be Facebook and GitHub. Okay, they are here. Icons are here also, but we can't see them, that because they are white also. And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna give an additional class name here. It's gonna be Google, Facebook, and GitHub. I'm doing this because we are gonna give different background colors for each item. So what about right side? I will come here and I'm gonna create input and placeholder, let's say username. And one more is gonna be password, and finally a button. And I will say submit, like that. Let's make them horizontal. I will open app.js here, sorry, app.css, and I'm gonna write here login first. Remember, it's our main container. Oops, I didn't give. It's gonna be login. Okay, firstly, let's give a height here. What I'm gonna do is giving 100 VH height, but if I do that, it's gonna overflow here. That because we have a navbar. To prevent this, I will say height and calculate is gonna be 100 VH minus 50 pixels, which is our navbar height. Okay, after that, let's enter our wrapper, display flags, align item center, justify content center. Oops. Okay, I didn't save here. Okay, awesome. So what about wrapper? Let's say width 60%, height 75%, and if I give box shadow again, exactly the same box shadow, it's gonna be like that. Of course, we are gonna take care of this title, but first let's make this comment out. We can see better our wrapper right now. After that, we are gonna give position absolute for this title, and it's gonna be showing up here. So let's center those items. I will say display flags and align item center. Also, I can give border radius here, but as you can see, left and right side are too close. To fix that, I will write here left and right, and they are gonna be flags 1. Half of this wrapper is left side, half of this wrapper is right side. I will make them vertical, so I will say display flags. Flags direction will be column, and align item center. Okay, perfect. So I can give one more item here. It can be, so we can write here or, and it can be a circle. So it will look better, I think. So after this left side, I'm gonna create one more div, and it's gonna be center. And it's gonna include a line. I can write here self close and one more div, and it's gonna be or. You are gonna understand better right now. So if I come here and say center, height 100%, and I'm gonna center everything. Okay, we are gonna give border for this or text, and our line is gonna be like that from top to bottom. I will say or border 2 pixels, solid and gray, actually light gray. As you can see, let's make a circle, border radius 50 pixels, and I'm gonna give some padding 10. Okay, let's say color gray and background color white. I will make this font weight bold. Okay, awesome. So what about this line? Let's create it here. Line, I will say width 0.5 pixels, height 70%, because remember, center is 100%, so it's gonna start from here and end somewhere here. Let's give background color, it's gonna be light gray also. So how I'm gonna center this? It's gonna be under this or. To do that, I can use position absolute. And if you are using position absolute, the parent should be position relative. And I'm gonna center this. To do that, I'm gonna use top, bottom, left, and right. and they are gonna be 0. And if I say margin auto, it's gonna be centered like that. But as you can see, it's on this circle. To prevent this, I will say here z index and -1. So it's gonna be under this circle. Awesome. So let's take care of our social media icons, buttons. So remember, login button here. Width will be 150. I will give padding 15 and 25. I will give border radius just 5 pixels. And text color will be white. We are gonna change background colors according to these class names. Let's do that. For Google, I will say background color, and it's gonna be this color. I will duplicate this. For Facebook and GitHub, it's gonna be this blue color, and it's gonna be black. Let's see. So let's make them bold font weight, and we can center them. So I will come here and display flex, align item center, font weight, bold. Okay, I will give margin bottom. And let's take care of our icons. Remember, our class name is icon here. So I will say 20, 20, and margin right 10 pixels, like that. Awesome. What about those inputs? Let's say 200 pixels. I will give padding 15 and 25 pixels, maybe 20. It's too big. Okay. Margin bottom 20. Like that. And this submit button 200. Background color will be purple and font color will be white. Font weight will be bold, like that. Let's delete this border and give some padding. Border will be none and padding will be 15 and 20 again. Maybe border radius. Okay, perfect. So what about this title? What was the name? Let's see. I'm gonna open this again and I will choose this. I will say position absolute. And if I say top 150, it's gonna be here. Let's change this color. It's gonna be light gray and perfect. So we finished our design. Let's install React Router DOM and let's take care of routing here. I will make this larger and I'm gonna open new terminal here and I will say cd client, and if you are using npm, npm install, if you are using yarn, yarn add, and React Router DOM. As you can see, React Router DOM just released the version 6. So there are some differences between version 6 and 5. Let's see what we have. I will say installation, and as you can see, we are still using browser router. And the main difference is we are not going to be using switch anymore. Instead, we are going to use routes. As you can see, we are going to wrap our routes with this component. And inside our routes, we are going to write here elements and our component. Let's copy here. Actually, first let's copy here. Let me shrink this and let's close everything and open our app.js. Okay, I will import this and other components. Firstly, we are gonna wrap our application with this component, browser router. After that, we are gonna use routes to wrap our routes. So let's delete here and write routes. Okay, remember it was switch in the version 5. Right now we are using routes. And we are gonna use this component here. And in the version 5, we were writing like that, root and this component between them. But here in the version 6, we are not gonna do that. Instead, we will write here our path first, the home page, and elements will be the home page component. Like that. Let's do the same thing for others. For login, it's gonna be login page. And for post, and we are gonna use a parameter for each ID, so I'm gonna write it like that. And my element will be post. Let's try. I can close here. I will refresh the page. As you can see, this is our home page. If I write here login, it's gonna open up login page. If I write here post and any parameter, it's gonna open this page. You can change here. But what I'm gonna do is creating here a user variable, const user, and let's say first false. Of course, we are gonna take this after login process, but for now, I'm just trying to teach you how we are using new roots. In the version 5, we were using redirect component to use any condition, but this time, for version 6, we are gonna use navigate component. So how we are gonna do that? If we have a user, there is no sense to see this page again. And same thing for products. If there is no user, they are not gonna see this page. Our posts will be kind of premium, and to see them, they should be logged in. So how we are gonna do this? Let's delete here and write our condition. I will say, if there is a user, navigate to home page. To home page. Like that. If there is no user, use login page. Like that. Let's see. We don't have user right now, but if I turn to true, and if I try to go to login page, it's gonna redirect us to home page. So I can do the same thing for this route. I will copy here, so I will delete here, and I'm gonna say, if there is a user, we will be able to see post page. If there is not, it's gonna be a question mark, of course. If there is no user, we are gonna navigate again, like that, and we are gonna say to login page. Okay, we have a user right now. We can visit posts, like that. But if we don't have any user, let's say false, as you can see, login page. Let's try again, post. As you can see, awesome, it works. So one more thing we need to know about React Router DOM, and they are gonna be links. Of course, you can use anchor tag, but if you are using React Router DOM, I recommend you to use link component. How we are gonna do this? Let's open navbar. For example, for this logo, I'm gonna use a link. So let's copy this and let's say link, as you can see, from React Router DOM, and between them I will say Lama app, and I will say to home page. I'm in the login page right now. As you can see, its style is different. I will click and we are going to home page, but it looks really strange. Let's take care of this style. So I will say class name, and it's gonna be link. I will open app CSS, and here I will say color inherit, so it's gonna inherit from its parent, and text decoration will be none. Basically, we are gonna remove this underline, and it's gonna look like the previous one. So what else I can do? Right now we have a user here. I can use this user here. I will pass this as a prop, so I can use it here. Basically, if we don't have any user, we are not gonna show those items. Instead, I'm gonna write here a login button. So let's come here and give a condition. I will say if there is a user, we are gonna use some elements. If there is no, we are gonna use different element. So let's move this after UL like that. And if there is no user, I'm gonna create here a link. And I will say login. And basically we are gonna go to login page. Let's make this login also. Sorry, link also. Okay, as you can see, we don't have user. We are seeing this page. If I click, we are going to login page. But if we have a user, let's make it true. We are gonna see those user information and logout button. Awesome, it's that easy. So I can do the same thing for these cards. Let's open card component. And here I'm gonna use link. And class name will be link and to post. But we should decide which post ID we are using. So I will come here and say backtick and post. And I'm gonna write here post.id. I will hover over one of them. Oops, we can't see it. Okay, I didn't cover. Like that. Okay, we can see our pointer right now. And as you can see, on the left bottom, it's post 1, post 2, and post 3. If I click, we are gonna go to this page. Okay, and finally, let's take care of this page. If you remember, we are using this post directly. So how we are gonna do this dynamic? I want to take this post ID and filter my posts array here. And we are gonna reach the actual post. There is an awesome hook. We can use it. So I will say const location, and it's gonna be use location hook. And let's see what we have here. Console log and location. Of course, there is no post right now, so I will comment them out. And let's open our console. Let's expand this and console. And as you can see, there is an object here. We have path name here. So basically, we can use this path name and we can split this string by using those slashes and we can reach this number. Let's do that. I will say const path and it's going to be location.pathname, this name, and I'm going to split this using slash. So it's our second item, 0, 1, 2. So we are going to reach this number. So let's filter our item. So I'm going to say post and it's going to be posts.filter. Actually, we can find directly. So I'm going to say find. And I'm going to write here my condition. If p.id equals this path. If I do that, it's not going to work. That because this id is a number, but this path is a string. To prevent this, I'm going to write here to string method. And we are going to reach our post. So if I open here again, and let's try. As you can see, they are here. If I go to another card, post 1. Awesome. It works. As you can see, React Router DOM is that easy. There is nothing complex. So we finished our design and routing process. So how we are gonna log in using social media accounts. So to do that, we are gonna use Passport.js. As you can see, it's an authentication middleware for Node.js and it's Express-based web application. So it means we are gonna create an Express server. So I'm gonna create one more folder here. Let's close this client side. So I will say backend. And let's come here. I will open up backend and I'm gonna install my Node application first. npm and init-y. So it's gonna create our package.json here. Let's see. Okay, it's ready. Let's create our main.js file. It's gonna be index.js. We are gonna create our application here, but we need a couple libraries. I will clear here, and it's gonna be yarn add. Firstly, we are gonna have Express server, Passport.js. We are gonna use course library. It allows us to make requests from any client server. In this case, it's gonna be our React app, and we are gonna use Nodemon and cookie session. Let's create them, and I'm gonna explain everything to you. Okay, it's ready. Let's create our Express app. I will say const express is gonna be require and express. So how we are gonna create our app? It's really easy. Only thing we should do is writing here express function. And if I come here and say app.listen, and we are gonna write here our port number, let's say 5000. And after connection, I'm gonna write here something. Console log server is running. Let's see. I will come here and say node index.js and server is running. But if I make here any changes, when I save, it's not gonna appear here. To prevent this, we are gonna use Nodemon, and let's write here Nodemon and index.js, and of course it's gonna be start. In this case, if I say here npm start or yarn start, it's gonna listen our application. Oops, I said star, it's gonna be start. Okay, as you can see, it's listening our application, so whenever I change anything in my application, it's gonna automatically refresh the app. Awesome. When we click any of those buttons, we are gonna see a model here. It's gonna come from Google, Facebook, or Github. And when we authenticate, they are gonna give us session cookies. So even if I refresh the page, our user still will be here. To do that, we are gonna use sessions. So I will say app.use and cookie session, and let's write here name session, of course in an object, and keys. You can create an env file and create your private key, but I'm just gonna write here Lama. It's not that important. And max age, it's gonna be 1 day. So basically we can calculate it like that. It's gonna be 1 day. And after that, I'm gonna initialize my passport library. So let's say app and use passport and initialize. And finally, we are gonna use passport and session. Okay, let's use course. I will say app.use is gonna be course. I'm gonna write my configuration. Firstly, let's write our client server. It's gonna be HTTP localhost, and remember we are using 3000 for the React app. And we can write here our methods. It's gonna be get, post, put, delete, or whatever. It really doesn't matter for this tutorial. And I will say credentials, and it's gonna be true. It basically allows us to send sessions through our client server requests. So let's create our first authentication method, and it's gonna be Google Authentication. So you can come here and search for any strategies. As you can see, there are many of them. You can log in with Facebook, Twitter, Google, local by using your inputs, GitHub, Steam, Azure, Spotify. There are tons of things here. So let's write here Google. And as you can see, it's the most popular one. Let's use it. we are gonna need one more library. Let's install. Oops, something is wrong, by the way. Course is not defined. Okay, let's import const course require and course. So let's open one more terminal. I know it looks really small, but let's say cd backend and yarn add this library. If you are not familiar with Passport.js, it can be a little bit confusing. The way of using this library might be a little bit weird for you, but don't worry, just follow the tutorial and try to create your own app using this tutorial. And in this tutorial, we are not gonna use any DB, we are not gonna use JWT. If you watch my other tutorials, you can combine them with that. It's just gonna be a quick crash course. Okay, as you can see, we are gonna use Google Strategy. Here we are gonna need a client ID and client secret. How we are gonna get that? So if you go to console.cloud.google.com, you are gonna see this page. Of course, after activating your user information, and here we are gonna use credentials. And we are gonna create oAuth client ID. But before that, you should create your application and consent what Google needs. And after that, you can come here and create your public and private ID. I will say application type web application. Okay, I'm not gonna change it. And here, I'm gonna create my authorized redirect URIs. What does it mean? When I click this button, the model is gonna show up, and when I log in via Google or Facebook or GitHub, we are gonna redirect to homepage here, and also we should redirect to some URL using our backend server. So we should write both of them. So I'm gonna write here HTTP localhost and 3000, and also HTTP localhost 5000, and let's say auth Google and callback. You can write whatever you want, but Passport.js prefers the writing them like that, so we are gonna use our callback URL like that. Okay, let's create, and as you can see, we have a client ID here and secret ID. Let's copy them, and here I'm gonna create one more file. It's gonna be Passport.js, and let's say const Google client ID is gonna be this ID. Of course, you can create an EME file here and use this API key there, but I'm not gonna do that. And const Google client secrets. But if you're deploying your application, I highly recommend you to use EME file, by the way. And our secret key. Okay, so let's use this strategy here. As you can see, we are gonna call this library. Let's write it here. I will change it to const. And we are gonna use those lines. Oops, client here. As you can see, we provided our client and secret IDs and callback URL. And as you can see, after authentication, it's gonna give us access token, refresh token, profile, and a callback function. After login process, you can use any DB like MongoDB, and you can find your user. If there is no user, you can create new one, but we are not gonna do that. That's because we are not gonna use any DB. So we don't need here a callback function. Instead, we are gonna use done. So if everything is done, we are gonna return no error, but profile. What's this profile? Basically, user ID, username, profile picture, and other pictures, something like that. Basically, it's a user information. And after that, since we use sessions, we should serialize and deserialize our user. We have to use that to pass our session. So it's gonna be serialize. I think we didn't import our passport. Let's import like that. Okay, we can write it right now. And it's gonna take our user and DOM function and DOM, null, and user. I will do the same thing for deserializing. So let's say deserialize user, and it's gonna be the same thing. I know it's weird, but this is how it works. If we are using sessions, we have to use those functions. By the way, you can write here, for example, if you are using MongoDB, you can say const user, for example, username, profile dot display name, avatar, profile dot photos, and first photo there. And after that, create new user model, and finally you can save your user. But we are not using MongoDB, so we need those sessions. So let's use this Passport.js here. So I'm gonna say const passport, let's say setup, and require Passport.js. Of course, you can basically write it like that. We are just importing this file. It really doesn't matter. And after that, we can create here our roots. So I'm gonna create new folder. It's gonna be roots, and inside, let's say auth root. If you watch my other tutorials, you already know how to use it. It's gonna be express router, and let's import passport, and it's gonna be require passport. Firstly, we are gonna get a client request. To do that, we are gonna use our router, and here post method is gonna be login method, or you can write get, doesn't matter. We are not sending any data from our React app. Of course, if we are using inputs here, it should be post method, but we are just calling our get method using those buttons. So I'm gonna say Google. And after that, if we visit this page, we are gonna call passport and authenticate. And authentication method will be Google. And finally, we are gonna use here scope object. And it's gonna include only profile. So it's gonna give us only ID, profile picture, name, something like that. And after that, we need a callback function, router.get. And remember, it was Google and callback. After login process, we are gonna call this URL. And as you can see, there is an auth here, but I'm not writing that because we are gonna define this in index.js. Don't worry about that. And again, passport and Google. After that, we are gonna have two options. First one will be success redirect. After successful authentication, we are gonna be redirected to this homepage. So we can use this URL like that, or you can write here const client URL, and basically we can use this here like that. And second option will be failure redirect. If it fails, we are gonna go to other URL, and it's gonna be login and failed. We don't have this URL. Let's create here. I'm gonna say router and get and login failed like that. And it's gonna be request and response. And we can return anything to our user. Let's say response status will be 401, which is not authenticated. And we can send here any JSON file. So we can say error or message, whatever you want. I will say success. It's gonna be false, and message failure, or any other long message. As I said, you don't have to write it like that. You can send whatever you want. And what if it's successful? I will duplicate this, and I will say if it's successful, let's say here success, Passport.js is gonna return us a user, and it's gonna be inside our request. So let's use it. I will say if request and user, it means if it's authenticated, we can send other message here. I will say response status is gonna be 200, which is successful, and let's write here success true, message successful, and also I'm gonna send my user, and it's gonna be request.user. And also you can send your cookies, request.cookies, or if you are using JWT, you can write it here, whatever you send to your user. I'm just gonna send this user, which includes our user information. Okay, but we are not gonna use it here, this URL here. Instead, we are gonna go to client URL, which is our React application, and we are gonna use effect. We are gonna make request for successful login. If there is a user, it's gonna send us our user. If there is no user, we are not gonna have any user, and we are gonna keep seeing this login button. Actually, we can write here logout also. I will say router.get. It's gonna be logout and request response. We are gonna use logout method here, and after that we can redirect our users anywhere. So it's gonna be response redirect, and it's gonna be again client homepage, client URL. Okay, basically this method is gonna delete this user, request.user, and after that it's gonna redirect us to client URL, which is our React app. Let's try this. I will go to index.js and import my auth root here. So I will say const auth root, and it's gonna be require and root auth. Okay, so we can use this root here. After course, let's say app.use, and it's gonna be auth URL and auth root. So whenever we make any request for this URL, it's gonna automatically call this root, and we will be able to use those methods. By the way, there is a problem here. That because I didn't export my root here. I should say module exports and router. Okay, so how I'm gonna use those requests using my React application? Let's open login page here, and I'm gonna write here onClick method. When we click this button, Google button, it's gonna call Google function. Let's create it here. I will say const Google, and what we are gonna do here. Basically, we are gonna make Google request using this URL, but we cannot directly do it here. It should be in the backend. So basically, I will say window.open, and I'm gonna write here my URL, which is http and localhost 5000 and auth and Google. And it's gonna open in this page, in this tab. So I'm gonna click Oops, there is a problem. Something must be wrong here. Oh, 30,000. It's gonna be 3,000. And also I'm gonna give my URL here because it's gonna allow us to make request from any application, and it's gonna be our React application. I will save. And let's try again. I will refresh. I'm clicking. Okay, still same error. That means something wrong with here. Google callback. Oh, I should delete this example. And let's try for the last time. I will go back and refresh. I will try to click again. And this time, as you can see, test Llama. And we are authenticated. If I open my console and application here, inside cookies, as you can see, 2 cookies here. And it includes crypto user information. By the way, those items look a little bit strange, so I'm gonna make them responsive. I will just copy and paste. I'm not gonna waste your time. I just added here media query. Let's see again. As you can see, it looks better. But as you can see, we have session, but we don't have user here. How we are gonna handle that? If I come here, as I said before, we are gonna make request for this endpoint in our app.js. Let's open up app.js, and here we are using a dummy user. Instead, we are gonna make a request. Okay, it can stay here. I'm gonna delete later. So I'm gonna use effect hook. And my dependency will be an empty array. It means whenever I refresh the page and start my application, it's gonna run. Let's create our fetching function. So I will say const get user. It's gonna be a async function. And we are gonna make request. Of course, you can use Axios or any other library, but I'm just gonna use directly JavaScript fetch. And let's make this request HTTP localhost 5000 auth and login success. And after that, we need some configuration here. Firstly, method will be get method. Of course, if you are using Axios, it's gonna be easier. So let's say credentials include, and I'm gonna write here my header like that. And of course, you can write here a variable and await, but let's do that without async await. I'm gonna use then. So let's say then is gonna return us a response. And I will say if response.status equals to 100, which is successful, return response.json. The parenthesis will be here. Let's delete here. Okay. I'm doing that because if there is no user, it's not gonna send this status. So in that case, we can throw any error. I will say throw new error and authentication has been failed. And after that, we have response.json. We can use it. I will say one more then, and let's say response object. And remember, it includes success and message and user, and we are gonna be using this user. So I will take this object and I'm gonna set my user. In this case, we don't need that anymore. Instead, I'm gonna use use state, and I'm gonna set my user. User set user is gonna be use state hook. At the beginning, it's gonna be null, and here, after taking this object, I will say set user response object dot user. And finally, we can catch any error. If there is an error, just console log. Okay, it might be confusing, but don't worry. If you check a couple times, you're gonna understand better. So I can call my function. And that's all. Let's write here console log and user. And we can see the difference. And as you can see, our user is here. That's because when I refresh the page, it just makes this request. And because of the session, we have a user. So what else I can do? I can give functionality for this logout button. Let's open navbar. And for logout button here, I will say on click, it's gonna be logout function. Let's create here const logout, and this time we are gonna call this endpoint. Let's see. I'm clicking, and as you can see, it's empty right now. If I log in again, and it's here. If I open my console, as you can see, we have an object. We have display name, ID, inside name. We have two items, family name, given name, and photos. As you can see, this is my avatar. So we can use those items. How we are gonna do that? In app.js, I'm able to use this user, and we are already passing this user to navbar, so we can use it there. I'm gonna delete this console log and open my navbar. And we have a user. Instead of, where is our name here? Instead of John Doe, I will say user.displayName. And here for image, I will say user.photos and first item. And it's not only first item. Let's check again. Item and inside, remember there is a value. I can use it here also. And that's all. Let's see. As you can see, my name and my avatar. Awesome. It works. I can log in and log out right now. Perfect. And when you create one passport strategy, others are gonna be much more easier. Let's say GitHub. It's gonna be GitHub 2. Let's open this. And I'm gonna install this library. Let's import this yarn add passport GitHub. And if you go to github.com settings and developers, you're gonna see this page. And you can create here new application, and after that you are gonna write here localhost 3000 and here localhost 5000 and auth, GitHub and callback. Exactly the same thing we did before for Google. And after that it's gonna give you client ID and secret. And as you can see, my application, homepage, callback URL, and this is my client ID, and I will take my secret ID also. So I will paste them here for my passport page. Let's paste here. As you can see, it's exactly the same thing. We are using GitHub strategy, access token, refresh token, profile done. We are gonna delete here again. So it's exactly the same thing. So we don't need here. I will just duplicate. I will say duplicate this piece of code, and it's gonna be GitHub strategy. And I'm gonna change here GitHub and GitHub callback. And here will be the same, but let's import our strategy. It's gonna be GitHub strategy, and it's gonna be passport GitHub and 2. Let's come here. Again, I'm gonna copy here and paste again. This time it's gonna be GitHub. And that's all. Let's see how it works. I will come here and I will do the same thing for GitHub. Let's say GitHub here, and this button is going to be on click event, and it's going to call our function GitHub. Let's see. I will open my login page, and if I click here, as you can see, my username and avatar. It didn't open GitHub modal, that because I've logged in before. So if you log in once, it's not going to open that modal anymore. It's going to be the same thing for Google also. Let's click. As you can see, it's not opening that modal anymore. We are directly getting authenticated. Awesome. It's that easy. So in this case, when I click any post here, we are going to login page. If I log in, we will be able to see these pages. Awesome. So let's do the same thing for Google. On click and Google. Sorry, it's not Google, it's Facebook. And let's create one more function here. It's going to be Facebook. But if we create our functions as we did before, we are going to get an error that because we cannot use HTTP URLs for Facebook APIs, it doesn't let us. It should be only HTTPS. So we are not able to use it in localhost. So you have to get a domain or somehow make your localhost HTTPS, and after that you will be able to see your Facebook authentication. But anyway, let's do that. I will say Facebook, and let's search for Facebook strategy. And as you can see, we are gonna use this one, and this is how we are gonna use it. I will say yarn add passport Facebook, and here it's gonna be passport Facebook, and it's gonna be Facebook strategy. And again, I'm gonna create Facebook app ID and secret. If you go to developers.facebook.com, you can get those ID and secret. And I will use it here. Facebook strategy, and let's change here. Facebook app ID and Facebook app secret. Like that. And I'm gonna change here. And let's try. If I click this button, I can't click. Oh, it should be for our div here. I will paste. If I click again, it's not gonna work. And it can also say your application is not secure, because as you can see, this URL must use SSL certification and start with HTTPS. So we are not able to use it here, but it works. I tried on a domain, don't worry. By the way, we can give cursor pointer here. App and login button. Okay, awesome. So we finished this project. I hope you enjoyed. In the future, we are gonna use this social media authentication for our big projects. But for now, I think it was a good beginner tutorial. If you learned something new today, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And you can support Lama Dev using the link in the description below or YouTube join button. And that's all. Don't forget to follow Lama Dev's social media accounts. I hope I will see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.